Hey everybody, welcome. We are here on this Friday afternoon to talk a little bit about launching a business. What a good time to think about it. Fridays are so great for that. So welcome, I'm really glad you're here. If you've got a question at any point about launching a business, add it to the chat. I'll keep an eye on those. I got a bunch of them already earlier this week, so I'll speak to some of those, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why I even got to this Instagram Live in the first place. So every year I run a mentoring group, and to be a part of the group you have to apply. The group is essentially free, but there's only spots for 4 people, and we get many applicants. So I write back to each person who applies. I read their stories and I give them personalized feedback on what they need to do next. Even if I can't let them into the program, I still want them to be successful. So I give them some advice, and I figure this is a really good time for me to give that advice to everybody. So I'll start off with some of the advice that I give all those folks and some of the questions I got from Instagram earlier this week, and then I'll take any questions that you have too. So add them in anytime. All right. So first, yes, let's talk about safety. So one of the reasons that people often want to go strike out on their own and start a business is because they want some independence, but they fear leaving their full-time job. They think it's safe, they think it's secure, and that if they go out on their own, they're going to lose that safety and security. But the security and safety we feel like we have when we work for somebody else is just an illusion. It is, it's just an illusion. In fact, so many of the people who applied to the mentoring program this year did it because they had lost their job. Their job had been cut because of COVID reasons, or, well, mostly it was COVID budget related reasons. So if that's the case, if a crisis like that can make you lose your job, then your job's not really all that secure in the first place, you know what I mean? I know that back when I was working at the university full-time, I thought my job was secure. Universities are one of those places where, you could work there for the rest of your life and never get fired. But I always knew that if a grant dried up or some funding stream got cut, I was gonna get cut too. There was no security in that job. So I think the idea that our day job is something secure is kind of an illusion that we have to get over. It's no more or less secure than you running your own business. Think of it that way. It's just that when you run your own business, you also have some say in the matter. When things start to look dry, you can do something about it instead of hoping that your boss will do something about it in your day job, So the risks are the same, it's just whether you have the control or not. All right, so then let's talk about the second thing that comes up a lot. Yeah, okay, so before you start your own business, let's talk about whether you should. And this is a really hard thing for a lot of people to swallow, but we often want to go into our own business so that we can do the thing we love all the time, without having to go to meetings we don't like, while keeping more of the money in our pocket. So let's say you love cat walking. Then you're gonna want to start a cat walking business. You can just walk cats 24/7. The thing is, as soon as you start your own business cat walking, you do far less cat walking. You do far less of the thing that you love because you have to trade the time. You think you're going to be doing the thing that you love, actually doing all the stuff that's behind the scenes. All that hard work that your boss is doing. So if you think about who works at your day job. So back when I was at the university, my last day job, the things that I did were I was doing research projects, but we had an administrative assistant out front who made all the phone calls, appointments, copies, everything. We had an IT guy. We had my boss who was out there trying to be the face of the company. We had people in HR. We had an accountant who tracked all the invoices all day long. Listen, when you start your own business, you are doing all of those things too. You are no longer catwalking. You are no longer doing research. You are doing all of those other things. So people often go into it because they're like, oh, I just want to walk cats all day, but like there's so much time you don't get to spend doing the thing that you love. So you really have to go into starting your own business because you like doing all of it. All of the behind the scenes stuff, all of the administrative work, chasing people down for their invoices. You have to at least be willing to tolerate it because that's going to be a part of your life now. So you shouldn't go into your own business just because you love doing the thing. You're going to spend less time doing the thing that you love. Which means a lot of people feel like they're going to start their own business because they like hate their boss and they don't want to work for their boss if their boss is a jerk. I get that. But maybe it just means you need to find a new job with a better boss so that you can still spend most of your time doing the thing that you love instead of doing all the other administrative stuff as well. All right, so another question that comes up a lot. Where am I going? Oh yeah, Mariana sent us this one. She said, I get overwhelmed thinking about where and how to start. This is such a good question. Like, what's even the first step? That was what she said. And actually, if you have the ability to be at a full-time job while you are thinking about starting your own business, then a lot of the work you're going to do begins at your full-time job. All right. So while you're there, while you're working for somebody else, it's a great time to study how they do business. So you'll want to look at like how they set up their contracts, how they set up their job descriptions, what the onboarding process is like when you're hiring new people. That's all stuff you're going to eventually do. So study all of that as much as you possibly can. Study it now. Get your hands on, ethically of course, get your hands on things like the budget so that you can see how they're calculating their expenses, how they're calculating overhead, what they're paying people. Like study the business from an entrepreneur's point of view, you know, learn as much as you possibly can before you go out on your own, because those are the blueprints that you're going to copy when you start your own company. I know I started with I had to modify everything, of course, but I started with the contracts, the budgets, the spreadsheets and things that I was able to get from the university. It's a great platform for you to begin with. I think otherwise we feel like we're starting from scratch and we don't even know the first thing about what to do. But if you have the ability to spy a little bit, ethically, of course, do it, okay? Get your hands on whatever you can. And that's also a good time to just double check that you actually like doing it, that you like that stuff, tracking the budgets, chasing down invoices, things like that. So aside from, like before you actually hang your shingle, aside from studying everything you can from your current job, it's a really good idea to figure out what your focus is going to be. What do you want to do in your business? And who do you want to do it for? Those are two of the primary questions you have to have figured out before you can get started. So figuring out your focus can be really hard for people. Part of it is a matter of what you're good at. Part of it is what you like doing. Part of it is what people are willing to pay for, what the world needs, you know? I think there's like a pretty famous Venn diagram where the thing that's in the middle is like your dream job. The thing you like to do, the thing that you're good at, the thing that people will pay for, the thing the world needs. So figure out what your focus is going to be, the service that you're going to provide for people. And then figure out who you're going to provide it for. Oftentimes when my mentees join the program and I ask them this question, their first response is, well, anybody who wants to work with me, that's my focus. Those are my people. And everybody is not an audience. That's going to be a terrible way to start your business because it leaves you nowhere to go. It leaves you like everything and nothing. So you got to figure out who actually you want to work for. Would you say yes to somebody who came to you at $10? Would you say yes to somebody who came to you with $1 million but got it through unethical means? You got to figure out who you want to work with. Is it big business? Is it the local nonprofit? Do you want to work in your town? Do you want to work in your state? Do you want to work globally? You got to know who you're going to work for because that's how you're going to know how to brand and market yourself. So you can spend the time before you actually, leave your day job figuring out that sort of stuff. What's your focus and who are you going to work with? part of the struggle, I see this came up a lot in the mentoring applications this year. Part of the struggle was people who are multi-passionate, who want to do lots of things, and they don't know which one to pick to go with, or they're trying to do all of them and they're kind of stressing out and seeing that it causes problems, because it does. So if your multi-passions are related, like let's say you like animals, and so you want to do grooming, you want to do training, you want to do walking. Cool, that's not really multi-passionate, you're just passionate about animals. You just need to define the umbrella of we love working with animals. You can do lots of services underneath that umbrella, not a problem. In fact, that's often a really good idea, because if the economy dries up in one particular area, it'll still give you other services that you can provide. So you can sort of see your services as a la carte for folks. So if suddenly like there's a shortage on soap and you can't do the pet grooming, you can still do the pet walking, right? It kind of gives you some balance when things are a little slow. But if your passions are not related, that's where things can get a little bit tricky. So if you do research full-time, but you want to also do cat walking full-time, it's going to be difficult and confusing. It's going to be difficult for you to figure out how to brand yourself and how to split yourself into two. That's really, really hard. Running a business requires like all of your energy and all of your creative ideas, and trying to divide that is really difficult. And it's confusing to your customers. When they Google your name, they want to find the thing that they are interested in. Whether it be research or cat walking, they're going to get really confused if they Google your name and they find the other thing. They're going to be like, wait, she also does cat walking? That's so weird. And then whichever it is that they're coming to when they're Googling you, when they see the other thing, it automatically makes you lose some credibility in their eyes. Like, well, why is she doing this and this? Isn't this strong enough that she doesn't need to have a side business? Like, it just makes you look bad. So customers get confused, and I think it undermines your credibility a bit. So if you are going to have multiple passions, think about one just being a hobby, and focus your big branding and your money making on the thing that's going to get you the biggest return. All right, so there's a lot to say about the focus. If you have multiple passions and services that you want to provide underneath this big umbrella, you still have to pick one to launch first. So how do you know which one to pick? The way that you're going to figure that out is to think about which one's the easiest to launch. Easy means like which one can you pick up and just get out there, get out the door as quick as possible. And what I mean by that, like some of the people who applied to my program this year want to do like workshops. They want to do training because they want to help people and they want to teach people and they feel like they're good teachers. That's great. Training is difficult. The curriculum development is time consuming. There is a lot you have to invest in developing even the content for a 1-hour workshop, plus the assets, the handouts, the promotional material. I mean, everything that you have to build around that one training session is a monumental amount of information. It takes a lot of time to build stuff like that. So that's not going to be the first place that you decide to nurture your business. You're going to do something else that's easier to launch, quicker to launch, before you develop your training arm. Pick something that's going to give you a high ROI too, so that you can bring in income that sort of covers you, shields you a bit, while you are trying to grow the other parts of your business. So it's okay to be multi-passionate, never a problem. Just pick start with the thing that's going to get you, that's going to cover your butt so that you have the space to develop other things. All right, let me look at a different question here. Okay, so coming back to who your audience is. Your job is going to be to articulate, your services and really what your clients, once you've identified your group, like what their pain points are. What struggles, issues, and troubles do they run into on a regular basis? And if you don't know what they are, that means your audience is too broad. So the more you can focus on your niche audience, the better you're going to be able to speak their language, talk about their problems, talk about their worries, and then talk about how the services you provide are going to solve those things. You're going to be doing that homework before you even launch your business, but ultimately that kind of wording is what's going to show up on your website, in your marketing, on all your social channels. You're going to be speaking the language of your clients and the problems that they have that you can solve. If you want to do more work in this area, just like articulating who your people are and how you help them, I suggest you check out a course by Seth Godin. He's got a couple of online courses on Udemy, but he has one on there. It's called like freelancers course or something like that, but it's something that you could watch in a weekend. When I first got started in my business, that's what I did too. I watched his course in a weekend. I worked through all of his worksheets, and by the time I came out the other side, I had a really good idea of the service I was going to provide, who I was going to provide it to, how I was going to solve their problems. And that is wording that went onto my website, and I still refer back to those worksheets today when I'm trying to remind myself of like, okay, how else can I say the thing that I do? I go back to those original words and read it through again. So I think it's a very valuable course, especially if you're in that thinking, forming stage still. All right, another question. One of the other things I really like about Seth's work, you'll see this when you start reading through his stuff, but he talks about marketing, and that's another big question people often have, like, how do I reach out and get those first few clients? Of course, you're going to be thinking about marketing and branding when you do that. But Seth's push around marketing is always that it's based in trust. It's never like that skeezy, weird stuff. It's always based in, I can help you. Like we can partner on this together. And he says that the more you tell the story about who you are, the better other people are going to know the kind of work you do and how you can help them, like the better clients you're going to get. And the way that I've seen this show up in my life is by thinking about my values. When I got really, really clear and rock solid on what my values were, like as a person, and how I wanted those values to show up in my company, it became really easy for me to get the clients that I really wanted to work with because I was articulating those values all over my social channels, all over my website. I think a lot of people get scared to say something that might turn some people off or might turn a potential client away. So they stick to super plain vanilla stuff in their social channels. It's all like puppy dogs, unicorns, you know? But when you say something like Black Lives Matter, you're standing up for a set of core values that will absolutely turn off some clients. They're not the clients you want anyway. They'd be bad people for you to work with because they don't align with who you are as a person and the work your business wants to do. So the more you say what those values are out loud, the better clients you're going to get. It's going to turn away the people that you never wanted to work with in the first place, and it's going to attract the people who share those same values with you and want to work with you. So the more that you know where you stand, the more you know what your values are, the more confidence you get. And the more you can say those things out loud all over your social channels. So that's all like part of the homework that you have to do ahead of time before you even start your business. It's just figuring out all of this stuff. So if you have a day job, great, stay for a while. Then use this time to like do that groundwork and figure those things out. So when you launch, it's really easy. And that's why my branding is so easy these days, because I don't have to worry about like, ooh, how will I say this? What if I offend somebody? I don't care if I offend anybody. That's how it ought to be. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but like, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And the sooner you figure that out, the better it's going to be for you. Because when we stick to the plain vanilla kind of way of being in the world, it doesn't even distinguish us from our competition. It makes us just washed right in with all the other plain vanilla competitors that you have. But the more you say your values out loud, the more it's going to distinguish you from everybody else. Joe's giving me claps on that. I like it. Thank you. Okay, so then when it's time to leave, what do? And this question came from Rachel. She said, how long should you side hustle before you make the leap into independent employment? Well, it's really nice if you get that kind of freedom, that flexibility to like pick your own date sometime in the future. A lot of folks are just kind of kicked out and having to figure it out without any kind of runway, you know? So how long should you side hustle before you make that leap? Okay, so now it's going to be time to talk about money. Well, let's start with this. If it's possible, if you have a day job, see if it's okay for you to cut back to like 80%. Or maybe start with like 90% or, you know, something in there. You want to stick to a FTE that's high enough for you to still be covered by benefits and stuff, but something that's going to buy you a little bit of free time so that you have the time and space and energy to devote to growing your own business. And then the more you build your side business up, the more you can continue to lower your FTE so that you always have this security blanket, you know? Now, with some employers, that's going to work. With other employers, they're going to be like, after you come in for the third time asking for a reduction FTE, they're going to be like, well, what's going on here, right? So, of course, you have to make sure that the side business that you're running isn't going to be a conflict of interest with your day job, or they're going to tell you you're fired. So you have to be really careful and delicate when you follow this path, but it can be a really smart one. It can be a really stable one to help you get yourself a good runway. If it's not possible, that's okay. You're still gonna work your day job 100% of the time, and you're gonna just do your side hustle on nights, weekends, early mornings, whenever you can sneak it in. It's really hard to do that. It's really exhausting to do that. So you're gonna wanna make some of these decisions sooner rather than later, because it's not something that you can draw out for a super long time. But let's get into the money part. So first, you need to figure out how much money you need to live a good life. Not just like live, not just like get by, but to be a really good boss to yourself. You know, like how much money would you need to earn? So when you are thinking through your, you know, yearly expenses, think through like a vacation, add a vacation in there. Wouldn't that be a life well lived? Think through whether you want somebody to clean your house for you. Think through whether, even if your car is paid off, build a car payment into that budget, because you're going to need a new one at some point. If you're currently renting, think about what your mortgage payment would be so that you can buy a house. Like, dream of your life well lived. Nothing super extravagant at this point, okay? We're just getting started, but also don't shoot for just like poverty wages, all right? So figure out what you'll need, what your dollar amount is going to be, and then double it. That's how much money you're going to have to pull in when you work for yourself. The doubling it comes in retirement, overhead, paying for benefits, things like that. So when my mentors told me I was gonna have to double, I was like, there's no way. That's the ridiculous amount of money. There's no way I'm gonna need that much. And then when I actually got started in my business and I figured out how much was in that overhead, it was 50%. So yeah, so you're gonna take that doubled amount, and that's how much you know you're gonna need to make when you are working on your own. At minimum, that's your floor. Then, when you've got those side clients in the pipeline, when you're picking up a few contracts here or there, you're gonna be building up your client list. And when you are at like 60 to 80% of your floor dollar amount, then it's time to walk away. Amy's given me some support on you need that double. You need the entire double. And that's if you're running like a consulting business that doesn't have a lot of overhead, right? So you're shooting for 60 to 80% of that covered by clients you have right now or booked like in the pipeline. That's when you know you can walk away. So if you are working your full-time job and you are not allowed to lower your FTE, it's 100% over here, leave when you're 60% figured out over here, which means you're working 160% for a while there. It's hard for a minute, you know? If you are able to reduce your FTE at your full-time job to like 80%, then wait till you get to like 80% here and then leave. But even still, it means there's gonna be some overlap in there where you're working like 160% time, and it's hard. It's hard. So I mean, that also means everybody else in your life has to be a bit cooperative. If you have a fresh baby, maybe now is not the best time to be working 160% of your time. You know, you got to think about the right time to strike out too. And taxes, thanks Joe, yes. That 50% covers your taxes too. All right, so walk away when you get to your 80%, 60 to 80, somewhere in there. There were some other questions that I got in here. I saw one back here. Let me see if I can address it before I move on. What about getting financial investments like startup investors, for example? Yeah, so I personally don't go that route. I don't recommend going that route. If it's at all possible, I recommend you bootstrap. Because as soon as you get investors, that means you're beholden to other people. You're beholden to their ideas. They're kind of like your boss. And didn't you quit so that you'd be your own boss? Like, having to be beholden to investors and because they gave you the initial money in the first place is tying your hands in a way that most people don't want their hands tied. That's why they are starting their own business. So if possible, that means pay for it yourself, which means you're starting small. You're starting with getting your tea carried in the local supermarkets. Before you launch a national campaign, start small, get enough money from your local supermarkets and the sales that you're getting there to reinvest in your business so that you can grow to get your tea in the supermarkets that are regional, and then in the state, and then in the tri-state area, you know, but grow gradually so that you're always in control. Reinvest the money that you make from your initial sales back into your company so that you're always bootstrapping yourself. It gives you total ownership. Really, there is no other way to do it. I mean, of course, logistically, there are other ways to do it, but I think you're going to regret it if you go that route. I know it's hot right now, like, to do a startup and get some seed investment and things like that. I've never seen those people be happy. One of my applicants wrote to me this year and said that she was in that exact position where they were looking to get funding, and it ended up that they were probably going to be acqui-hired, you know, like acquired by a larger company, where they were just going to become an employee in somebody else's company. Like, didn't you leave that in the first place? So, yeah. So it might not be the answer you want to hear, but I recommend don't get investors. Be your own investor. And I'm saying that as somebody who did not get help from my parents, no inheritance that was helping me launch my business. You just start small. So related to that, a question came up. Do I need a business plan? And that's often something that bankers want to see if you are going there to get a loan, or that startup investors would want to see. They'd want to see your business plan. I personally think plans are trash. I think that we sink a ton of time into creating business plans that we rarely follow, because as soon as plans hit real life, everything's out the door, you know? I mean, do you think that in 2019 anybody's 5-year business plan included COVID? Heck no, it didn't. So, I mean, we spend all this time in these strategy meetings developing business plans only to have everything shift as soon as we hit the real world, because the real world doesn't care about your plan. So I say, let's stop having business plans and just spend more time, and not as much time, focusing on the services you provide, who you provide them to, their pain points, and the problems that you can solve for people. That's what you really need to get clear on, who you really want to work with. Like, we made some decisions, when I say we, I mean me, and like the business meeting included me, myself, and I, but I guess when it's business stuff, I always do think about it as a we. We made a decision a while ago about who we were going to work with and who we weren't. This is especially something to refine the more you get clients. You're gonna probably at first say yes to a lot of people because you need to pay your bills. But before too long, you'll be having more people coming to you than you can deal with, and so it's time to get choosy about who you want to work with. Even if you've done some initial work to like define your niche, you'll still want to do some refinement of that as you go. So we made some decisions here that we were only going to work for good people, good companies. I think we have something on our website that's like, if you advertise on NPR, you're the kind of person that we work with. So that tells everybody, like, They can self-select in or out before they even contact me to ask if we could work together, because I'm already telling folks who we work with and who we don't. Now, every once in a while, I'll get a call from a big company that is, you know, not very good, and we will still do work with them. We will. They don't read the website. They don't care. They're just reaching out to me anyway because they've heard about me through some reputation. So we say, yes, we'll work with you. But then we give the money we make from that giant evil corporation to the local nonprofit in my area that does the exact opposite thing of that company. So that's a way that we can say yes to more people, even if they don't necessarily align with our mission, but still make it align with our mission. You know what I mean? And as much as I go onto social media and say things like, yeah, we just gave money that we earned from Facebook to, who did we end up giving that to? I don't even remember, some local nonprofit. Facebook doesn't care. Nobody's looking at my social media enough to go, oh, well, we can't hire her ever again. That's not how it works. We just continue to do what fits with our values. Yeah. Okay, I kind of forgot where I was going with this. I know, it's a really great strategy. It lets you say yes to a lot of people. All right, I've got more questions here. Okay, I got a question of how to promote and find new clients. So yeah, all right, so you've done all this other work already. You're really figuring out you want to work for yourself, really figuring out what your services are going to be and who you're going to provide them to. How do you go get those clients? And number one is that word of mouth is still absolutely everything. Word of mouth is totally how our world runs, maybe even more so now that we have social media, that everybody has social media. One tweet from the right person can get you 5 clients, you know? So word of mouth is going to be everything, which means you need to generate some word of mouth. And this is also why it's never a good idea to burn bridges with clients, because that's also going to be word of mouth in the direction that you don't want. So how do you get that word of mouth going? First of all, you got to tell people that you're in business. If you have a couple of clients who you've picked up just along the way that kind of gave you the taste of wanting to work for yourself, you need to go back to them and get some testimonials. Ask them to give you a couple sentences about what it was like working with you. And then you're going to make a little graphic of that testimonial. You're going to put it on your website. You're going to put it all over your social media. You're going to be telling people, basically, look, I do good work and I can be trusted. Here's my verification. This other person has already said that I'm good at this. So you're going to ask them for testimonials. You're also going to ask them for referrals. So you're going to ask like, hey, I'm looking for a couple more clients. I have some space in my schedule for like 1 or 2 more people. Do you know anybody who's in a similar place as you that could use my work? They don't have to be in the exact same industry, but it could just be like anybody you know. If so, would you give me an introduction? And it's okay if they say no. It's okay if they say they're not comfortable. It's okay if they say they don't know anybody. You have to ask for those referrals, especially when you get started. You have to ask. And you can't wait until the project is done to ask. You need to be generating that new business when you're in the middle of a project that you're already working on for somebody else. If you wait till the end of the project and you say, hey, working together was so awesome, don't you think, would you refer me to somebody? Then you're going to have a gap in income. Because the referral, it takes months to get somebody, you know, to build that relationship, to get the contract negotiated and to get started doing the work with them and to get that first paycheck from them. So you have to ask for those referrals when you're in the middle of a current client. The best time to market is when you are busy. That's how you guarantee that you don't have any valleys in your income, all right? So word of mouth. So if you've got a couple of those clients that you can tap into, then let them start that ball rolling for you. Word of mouth is going to be its own snowball that just rolls and rolls and rolls in the future. If you don't have anybody that you've worked with yet, you're starting from total scratch and you don't know what to do, this is like the one and only time it's okay to offer your services at a significant discount or even free. It's not actually free. It's going to be in exchange for testimonials and feedback. It's like getting that kind of feedback, big companies hire focus groups. They pay people to give them feedback on new products before they launch. So that's the thing that you're gonna do. You're not gonna pay people, you're gonna give them the work for free. So what I mean by all of this is that, like, if you think you want to, say, run some workshops, that's cool. If you spent all that time developing your curriculum, getting all your assets pulled together for it, you want to make sure it's going to work first, and you want to make sure that it has some people that say it's good. So offer it to a local nonprofit, somebody who has zero budget but would be a great name behind your company. Offer it to them for free. In exchange for, basically you're telling them that they're going to be the guinea pig. They're going to have to give you a ton of feedback about how the whole thing has gone. And you're going to ask them a bunch of questions, not just about the workshop that you did, but about your branding, how you were as a person. You're going to ask them about every single aspect of the business that they've been exposed to, so that you can refine your work, but you can also collect those testimonials. So that's the only time when you want to do it for free, and I would actually encourage you to find ways to do it for some pay instead of free. For example, when I was first getting started, I went to my local library. They were running a set of ongoing speaker series for the local nonprofits. It was free for them to attend, and the library paid the speaker like $500 or something. So it wasn't even really worth, it wasn't good compensation for all the time that I had put into developing it, but it was something. And so I got to basically test out all my work on these nonprofits through the partnership with the library in a way that made it win-win-win all around, So if you have absolutely no clients yet, you can start that ball rolling by doing something for free. After you have enough that you're standing on your own 2 feet, we don't work for free anymore. I want to rephrase that. I work for, how do I want to say this? I don't work for cheap at all anymore. Like if somebody's like, oh, I've got $500, could you do a talk? Like that's not anywhere close to what we would charge here. So the answer is going to be no. But if they're a good person, then I'll say, I'll do it for free, but it'll be just like an informal Q&A. It won't be something that's actually part of my intellectual property. Does that make sense? So like this right here, totally free. But it's not like my business secrets. It's the advice that I'd be giving to everybody. So I get that question a lot about when should I work for free. You should work for free at the very beginning to get testimonials, to get feedback, to get that ball rolling. And then later on, 1 pro bono client a year. Nobody that's going to take up that much of your time though. Yes, exactly. Offering those services to a nonprofit. Pick a good one. Pick the kind of people that desperately need your help, that you'd want to support anyway, Oh, Michelle, what about conferences? Yeah, conferences are actually marketing. Speaking at conferences for free, good. So when you go to a conference, the content that you're going to give them is not going to be your total bread and butter. You know what I mean? It's going to be like why they should care about the thing that you do, why it's important for them to pay attention to the thing that you do. That's all going to be like inspiration and education for sure. But ultimately, hopefully, it leads them to want to hire you to actually help them do it, So, for example, when I go to conferences, I usually talk about like, I did a recent one that was how data visualization is saving the world. And it was a talk about current examples, everything from like George Floyd to COVID, about data visualization and how data viz was being included in these big social movements, and how if we can do that too, then it can give life to the passions that we care about. So I wasn't teaching anybody how to do data visualization. That's what they're going to come pay me for. I was teaching them why it's so important for them to want to do this in the first place. You see what I mean? So you don't want to give away like your bread and butter at a conference. You want to teach people stuff, but still protect your IP. Your IP is what's behind the paywall. Make sense, Michelle? I know it does. Okay. What other questions do we have here? I think that might be all I have. What questions do you have? Those are all the ones that I got. Teach the why, not the how. That's right. Yeah, you are the one who knows the how. They pay for the how. Cool. Good. Well, good luck. So, this is, talking about consulting is not my day job. I am a consultant. That's my day job. And I do consulting about data visualization, but maybe twice a year, I do give a lot of insight about how I run my business and how you can run your business. It happens usually in the spring when I'm doing this applicant round for my mentee group. We're kicking off on Monday, so this is a good time for me to give that feedback to everybody. And then again in the fall when I'm on my anniversary of leaving my day job and starting my own business. That's also a really good time to give out some free advice. So if you're thinking about launching your business, these are the 2 times of the year to come ask me those questions. Joe's got another one. I'm happy to answer as long as we're here. It's a beautiful Friday, so hang out as long as you want to. Joe says, what's the most important thing you do now that you wish, what do I wish I had known when I first got started? That's a really good question. Oh, and I answered it the other day. Let me grab my answer though, because I don't remember what I said. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Great question. So somebody just asked me this, so I had written this stuff down. Okay. So I made 2 big mistakes when I first got started. One was that I said yes to everything and everybody. I was like thinking, I kind of knew who I wanted to work with. I was just so scared of not paying the bills. I had to leave my day job earlier than I had wanted to, so I had some concerns about the money and the security. So I was saying yes to pay the bills. And I was saying yes to too many people. And it took me years, I repeated this pattern for years. It was so dumb. But I just had so much insecurity about where I'd be in 8 months, because so many of my projects are so short term that I can't see that far into the future. And it was really hard for me to just trust the universe that business would come and clients would come. It was really hard for me to do that. So I just would say yes, 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 yes. And then I would find myself with a ton of money, but drowning in work, just so stressed out, health problems, anxiety issues, So it took me a long time to figure out that I also, in addition to creating a floor of how much money I needed to make to live a good life, I also needed to create a ceiling of when too much money was gonna hurt. And there's a big old range in there, okay? There's a lot of room to play. But I had to know when to put the brakes on. And that's helped me a lot. That's kind of saved some of my sanity in more recent years, is figuring out when to say no. Because even though I only want to work with great people, there are a lot of great people, and I still need to know when I need to save myself, So that's one thing. The second thing was not protecting my intellectual property very well. So I'll tell you a sad story about this one. When it comes to I don't know where to put this, when it comes to not protecting my IP very well. Okay, so when I first got started, I was doing workshops in design. In the design work, I had consulted with local graphic designers about how to structure the contract and how to handle billing. So the way that they recommended I handle, this was really smart too, was that you collect payment when you provide a deliverable. So in design work, usually, there's a mock-up, collect payment on the mock-up. There's first draft, collect payment. There's final draft, collect payment. So they were basically saying divide it up into 3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Okay. However, when I did my first design project, and I think it was like layout for a textbook or something, all the intellectual work went into the first draft. I only mocked up like 10 pages, but it was all the real labor that had gone into those first 10 pages. And they said, oh, this is great, perfect. Here's 1/3 of the payment. Now we're gonna go have our intern carry this mock-up out for the rest of the book. Our contract is now done. And I was like, crap. I'd given away all of my work, you know, really all the labor that went into the product, but for a third of the pay. So now I know better to protect the IP. And if you are going to do something like dividing up payments and connecting them to deliverables, you want to front load those payments so that you get the bulk of the pay when the first thing is due. Yeah, I know. Oh no, I know, but we've all done it, right? We've all done it where we're like, not really thinking through all the work that goes into that first draft that you show people. I think the contracts, most contracts too, have like a 2-week cancellation policy where it's like they literally could walk away and just pay you for the amount of work that you've put in so far. And contractually, there's no real good way to protect yourself against that other than to front load so that you don't collect a third at the first one. You collect maybe 75% at the first deliverable. Now I know better. A good question here. Let's see. Do you charge by hour or by project? And do you have any tips on estimating how much time you'll spend on a project? Yeah, this is really hard. So I recommend you charge by the project. It's when you're doing small stuff or when you're doing stuff where the scope is so big and unknown that you're going to be feeling your way out and you can't possibly even estimate what your time would be, what the scope would be, charged by the hour. But that's not going to be that often, right? Because the thing is, most people start hourly and then they go, well, I'm really good at this, so now it takes me half the time it used to take me. I've learned all these efficiency tricks. I've got my templates built behind the scenes that make this a very easy process for me. Should I get paid half of the value because I'm twice as good at doing it? Hourly just falls apart really quickly. So I recommend estimating I don't even want to say estimate your time, but I recommend billing by the project. I don't recommend you just think through the hours the project is going to take you, do a little bit of math by your hourly rate and give people that number. I mean, that could be a good way to start, but ultimately that's still kind of like trading time for money, you know? And I think the way to scale your income a little bit faster is to think through, it's a kind of a mix between what your time input would be and what kind of value this is going to provide to people. I think that's a better way to price yourself. It's hard, I know, but I think ultimately it's going to be the way to grow. So that might not be something that you're like, you can really estimate or handle till you're a little further down the road in your business's maturity. So in the interim, think about estimating by project. And so do you estimate, I mean, sometimes I look at my hours, I go, well, how many hours do I think this is going to take? And it's always going to be rough. On some projects, you're going to totally underestimate the number of hours that you're going to sink into it, and you're going to feel like you made a lot less per hour. Other times you're going to totally overshoot and you're going to end with ultimately making more per hour than you had thought about before. But we kind of need to quit thinking about the time per hour and just think about per project kind of flat fees, you know, so that no matter how efficient you are, you're still getting paid the same amount of money for the work. Still, for your own budget, you need to know like how many, for your own time scale, your schedule, you need to know how many hours things are going to take so that you don't burn yourself out. And that only comes with practice. So I would try tracking your hours for a while on certain projects and keep a little diary of it. So like project name, project description, what the initial scope was going to be, how many hours it took you. So do that for a while. I mean, maybe like a year, and you'll see some patterns of what the scope is and how long it ultimately took you to do it, so that you'll be able to better judge, okay, in a month I can handle 2 projects or whatever. Balance things out, you know. Cool. Okay, good. Fun questions. So I think I'll see you back in August, at the end of August, for the next Instagram Live on consulting. I have a blog post or 2 on my site that I've written with some of this advice too, so if you need to remind yourself in like a month, you can always go check it out there. This is going to be on my IGTV and in my stories, so you can always review too if you only came in like halfway through. Awesome. And maybe next year think about applying to the mentoring program. Cool. See y'all later. Bye.